In this video, we want to look at a couple of important but pretty basic stuff in InDesign, and this goes back several versions at least. I want to look at the feather gradient, the straightforward gradient, and some of the graphic effects or FX that are here in InDesign. Remember, this is not meant to be a graphics intensive program. It's not supposed to take the place of Illustrator or Photoshop, of course, but there are some basic things that are very useful right here in InDesign. So let's get to it. The first thing we want to look at is the feather gradient tool. For those of you who are familiar with layer masks in Photoshop, this is literally the exact type of tool right here in InDesign. So we pick the tool, and you can run, and I'm going to call it a gradient, a layer mask, on an image, on type. Here I'll focus in on a graphic right here, and you simply, like the old Illustrator gradient tool, you pull it across an image, and you see it made it translucent because there is a strong background here. But I can also go to an image and again pull it, and depending on how and where you pull it and the direction, you will literally make that image appear to be faded out. I'm going to go ahead real quick and go to another page. I think we can see it a little bit more clearly. This is a blank page, and I'm just going to simply get a box and put some color in it. And again, it could be a photograph, it could be just color, it doesn't matter. And this tool works very nicely on any of these. So again, I just have a color box, and I am going to get the gradient feather and just pull it across the image. And you have to select the image, by the way, I'm sorry, and you can see there very quickly, and the direction and the length of this little line, this tool, if you will, that indicates the direction and the length. This black line from one end to the other is the entire gradient. So if you pull it short, you're going to get a short, intense layer mask. If you pull it long and wide, you'll get a much wider and more subtle layer mask. It works very much like the gradient tool here in InDesign and the older Illustrator gradient tool before the slicker, newer version. So again, it really doesn't matter what you are doing. Let's see if I can put some type in this very quickly, and you'll see it works the same with type as well. So you can see whether it's color, whether it's a photograph, whether it's text, does not matter. All are going to work the same with the gradient feather. And of course, as with all the tools, you can double click the tool and you can bring up the gradient feather, which is considered part of the effects or FX, and you can adjust it like you can any straightforward gradient tool for the transparency. And we can, like all regular gradient tools, we can add some more little buckets and give those different opacities and make it pretty much to your liking. But it's very simple and it works. Always select the image or the graphic and then just simply pull the tool across the image until you get the effect that you like. Okay, and while we're here, let's go ahead and look at the other effects that we have here in InDesign, there's the basic, they look more and more like they come right out of FX from Photoshop. The drop shadow, again, we can just simply click on this and you can pick your opacity and the color. We can, the direction, how much it's offset. Of course, the drop shadow, like many of us probably we use, and I'm certainly guilty of it, using it much too often. But it looks great and it's really neat stuff. So turn on the preview right here in the corner. Always turn on the preview, and here you can see, I'll turn off the gradient feather, and you can see very quickly, here's the drop shadow. It's a bit of a hard edge drop shadow, but the effects are available up here in your main menu as always, under Object, and you can come down here, and here's effects, and here they are, of course. So I can go back to it, and I can adjust it, I can offset it, I can make it softer. You have all of the blending filters, again, standard in Illustrator and in Photoshop, and you can change the opacity of it. You can clearly change the distance. You see the shadow, if you're looking closely, see the shadow pulling away from the image, and of course the direction of it, all of that business. And of course, we might very well have it much softer. The spread, you can see, will affect some of that. And you just have to play with it a little bit, and you'll get the hang of it pretty easily. And I just think it's an amazing tool, and as always, the things that we can do here so quickly and easily. There's a much softer shadow. We can again spread it. Make sure you turn on your preview, and you'll be able to use this with a lot of good effect. You've got the bevel and emboss. You've got the inner and outer glow. And again, you can simply have multiple things going on. You simply click it and turn it on, and even after you've applied it, you can go back and readjust it, and or you can simply decide on the fly, I don't want it, so I'm going to just uncheck it, and that would take that effect off of your page or your graphic. And so it's very easy and really nice in terms of how it works. Okay, all right. The last thing I want to talk about is the basic gradient tool, and again, I'm going to just keep it simple here. I'm going to get rid of this graphic box, and I am going to remember, everything in InDesign needs to be in a box or container, and remember, all boxes and containers are nothing more than points and paths. So I'll make a rectangle here, and I will go to the basic gradient tool, which is right above the feather. Okay, and I will grab it, and once again I could double click it if I want to see the dialog box that goes with it, and it tends to default to black and white, and that's okay. Don't get freaked out by that. We can go up here to our options button. Actually, I'll just go right down to the bar and click on it, and we see our little buckets as I always call them, and I've done several other videos about gradients. And so here, think of these as the little paint buckets, and like all straightforward gradients in the Adobe suite, we can move it and change how it looks. We can click a new paint bucket. We can pull it straight down to get rid of it. And then when you want to change the color of it, you would simply double click on these little buckets. Now, there's always been a bit of to me, a little bit of a funky thing here that I want to bring up the colors, and I tend to go to the options button, and there's nothing there to help me with this. And so here is where you got to go to the swatches, and you need to tell it you want RGB, or you want, for print, of course, CMYK. So you really always need your color swatches up on the screen, and you've got your color dialog box as well. And see here, let me pull this over here real quick and drop that there. So if it's defaulted, there you go, black and white, you got to go here in color and go to the options button and say, oh, I want some color, I want CMYK. So now I've got my sliders, I've selected one of my little paint buckets, and so now I can apply a color, you see. And then again, I'll add another paint bucket, and I'll add another color, etc. And so you then select, add, delete the number of paint buckets that you want, and you can apply your color. But again, it throws folks, like it did me for a second. It tends to default to black and white unless you already have some gradients. And of course, if you do have a gradient that you like, that you've created, you can simply drag it to your swatches. This has always been the case with the Adobe programs, and we can just drop it right into the swatches, and sure enough, here we have that now permanently installed in our swatches right here. So it's easy to make them, it's easy to capture them, and then the last point, as always, like the older Illustrator, you simply, and the gradient feather that we were looking at, you simply pull the gradient tool across your image. And again, the black line from edge to edge, however long you pull it or however short you pull it, that is symbolic of the entire gradient. In this case, from this pinkish magenta on one side to this orange on the other side. So the direction, the length is going to dictate how it falls into the space. And that pretty much is all there is to it. And I think you'll find it, again, it's not meant to replace Illustrator, that has many more graphic effects and things for creating graphic images. These are just very useful addendum parts, if you will, to the basic page layout program. So there you go. Thanks for tuning into the Rick Rice 1 channel. Hope these things help a bit, and have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Come on back for some more.